Hi, and welcome to Module 3. This video is the Module 3 overview, and we're going to cover a lot of ground, so feel free to go ahead and watch this twice if you need to, 3 times if you need to, or just listen carefully, and you should be okay. But this is a very busy week, and we're really starting to get into some technical things, so let's get going. So referring back to our course Gantt chart, we are here in Module 3, and as you can see, Module 2 and 3, 2, 3, and 4 are going to focus on that team single source project assignment. And this week, we're going to focus particularly on our topic-based authoring tutorial and our content model. So one is an individual assignment due midweek. That would be our topic-based authoring tutorial. One is a group or a team assignment due at the end of the week. So let's get going. So the first thing you'll need to do, so last week you would have completed a Madcap Flare tutorial, which means you would have already installed Madcap Flare on your Windows machine and you will have already activated the license. So you're already got a head start on that. The next thing you'll need to do then is to pull in the Zen 4 project files. So just as a reminder, the Zen 4 project files were generated from the original PDF that the tech company provided. And essentially each Zen 4 project file is an HTML file, .html file, and they are split or divided by each heading 1, meaning anytime a heading 1 is entered into the PDF, Madcap Flare automatically created a new HTML file. And so that's sort of how the topics are broken down, just to give you a little background. Okay, so to access the files, you'll open up Madcap Flare and you'll go to the View ribbon and you will click Madcap Central. You will have already received, hopefully, an invitation to Madcap Central. Madcap Central is essentially just a cloud-based repository. So basically, it's a way to store all your files, share files with teammates, make sure that everything is up to date. And so you can download files from Central and then re-upload those files back up to Central so that I can see your updates and your teammates can see your updates. So you'll click the Madcap Central icon from the View ribbon, and that will prompt you to log in. So you'll already have created a login and password. And so once you log in, you should see this bottom screen where you'll see the license is Department of TECM, and you'll see you'll be given to a library of files that include all of the Zen 4 content. Okay. So once you've actually accessed the files, you'll have to complete this topic-based and structured authoring assignment. This is the midweek individual assignment, okay? So let me walk you through. This is going to take about 2 to 2.5 hours, and let me walk you through what you need to do. So when you go in and you open or you access the Zen 4 project files, there's a few ways to look at the files. One way is you can click on File List. The other way you can look at it is Content Explorer. I prefer the Content Explorer because those files are divided between the hardware installation and the software installation, or the software configuration guides. So those topics are already divided for you. If you go straight into the file list, you'll see all of the files in alphabetical order, but they won't be divided sort of as this is part of the hardware configuration versus this is part of the software configuration. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But you'll access the files, and essentially you're going to want to find one example of a task, one example of a concept, and one example of a reference. And these are in, if you're confused about what those are all explained in this week's video lecture, and they're also explained in the readings. And so you'll find one of each, and this may be, you may choose articles that are not from Chapter 1 or the appendix of either guide. And I say that because I want to remind you, the end sort of proof of concept that you'll turn in with your team, the final product, again, is just going to be a subset of all this content. And the subset of that content will be chapter 1 from each manual, the hardware and the software, and appendices from each. And again, if you're confused about that or you're not clear about that, you need to go back to the single source project assignment description and read it very carefully. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to find an example of one of each. And you're going to rewrite each of those using JORSIC's guidelines. So we talked about, you'll probably listen to this after you watch this overview, but we'll talk about JORSIC's guidelines. And these are basically a style guide, for lack of a better term, that shows sort of how different types of topics should be structured. So in that guideline document, you'll be able to find a task concept, a task topic, and it will walk you through all of the parameters for structuring an article based on a task. And it'll do the same thing for concept and for reference. So you're going to use those guidelines, again, accessible in the assignment description as a PDF, and you're going to rewrite 3 articles: 1 task, 1 concept, 1 reference. Okay. You want, when you're done, actually, I would do this before you even start. I would rename the file. You can do that by just right-clicking the file itself and clicking rename, and adding the topic type to the beginning of the file name. So, for example, task dash populating the chassis. And then I would end with your initials, dash KSC in this example. Mine would be CYL. Yours would be whatever your initials are. That way I can see who rewrote what topic, and I can see exactly what kind of topic it is, just based on the file name. The last thing I want to point out for this assignment is these 2 screenshots that I've pulled. Once you've actually rewritten the content, you can actually, in Madcap Flare, add elements or name elements for reuse, okay? So this really helps with structured authoring, but essentially the example I'm giving you is, according to JORSIC's guidelines, one of the sections you're going to want to include in a task topic is result, right? So what is the result of actually completing the task? And so what I'm showing here in this screenshot is once you add that heading 2, so I've created a heading 2 tag for our result section, you can actually right-click that result section and you can click name. When you click name, you'll be brought over to this menu and you can actually rename each of these elements, right? So they're H2 tags, meaning, again, reminding us of HTML. It's a heading 2. But we can also add more structure on top in Madcap Flare by naming these elements, right? So I've named this one result. I named the previous section steps, and you can actually name each step singular if you wanted to do that. And I named one section prereq. That is for the prerequisite section. Okay, so I just wanted to give you an example of just a clear example of sort of how to impose structure in Madcap Flare. So the main way to impose structure is to just use good information architecture on your headings. So heading 1 for the title, heading 2s for the different sections. And then the other thing to do is then naming those elements for reuse. Okay, so that is the topic-based and structured authoring assignment. What you'll do for that is you will just rename these files, and that way I'll be able to access your contribution to the repository. So again, this is an individual assignment. Hopefully that makes sense. You're just rewriting 3 articles: 1 task, 1 concept, 1 reference. Okay, next assignment, the team content models. So this is the end of the week, and in this week's lecture, we're going to talk about information architecture, and we're going to go through each of these 5 steps of information architecture in the lecture, so you'll be well-versed in sort of how the process works. And then as a team, what you're going to do is you're basically going to walk through this 5-step process together as a team. And essentially, there's a couple. I won't give you any more instruction on how to work as a team, but you will be completing this as a team. So there's a couple tasks you'll need to do. So step 1, the content inventory is already done for you. So in the assignment description, you'll see a link to a Excel spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet, you'll see every single article in the Zen 4 content. So just an entire list, inventory of all of the content. So you'll download that spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet, I created a highlighted row just as an example. This is just one example, and I'll kind of walk you through what you'll need to do. So step 1, once you've downloaded that spreadsheet, is you're going to categorize every single article in that spreadsheet as either a task or a concept. I'm sorry, a task, a concept, or a reference. So one of the 3 data types. Okay, so there's going to be a lot. I don't know exactly. I don't have it in front of me, but there's going to be a lot of different topics. So this will take some time, and this step 1 is just highlighted in column D here, right? You're just categorizing, like, what is this? This is a concept. What is this article? This is a task. What is this article? This is a reference, etc. Right? So for every single topic, you're categorizing. Okay? So that's the first task you need to do. Second task you need to do is you need to create 3 template files in Flare, 1 for each topic type. This is actually going to be very similar to what you've done in the individual topic-based authoring assignment. But the only difference is you're going to make these templated. So for example, what you see here is in brackets, just putting some guidelines or structured information into where the content goes, right? So in this particular example, there's not actual content in the template. It's just the prompts that are found in these brackets. So for example, replace with title, make sure it's an ing verb. Replace with purpose, make sure it's less than 50 words. Include keywords and search content. Replace with any prerequisite conditions or steps. Replace with steps and a result. This is just one example. This is not a great example because I would like to have seen headings and things like that included in the template. But just to give you an idea of sort of how to add placeholder content, it's really just in brackets here. The other thing I'll encourage you to do at this stage is this step of naming elements. Okay, so again, if we're putting together, for example, a task template, I would expect to see something like the JOR6 guidelines where you've got headings in different sections. And then you could, of course, put your placeholder content in your directions, but then also tag or name these elements as, for example, steps, or for example, result, or whatever that structured section of that topic might be. Okay, so step 2 then would be to create 3 template files, 1 for each topic type. Okay, these are going to be just templates that help you as you are rewriting content for this single source project. Okay, so 3 template files. And lastly, you will add keywords, metadata, and content group locations to the spreadsheet. So you'll return back to the spreadsheet and you'll see a column for keywords, a column for metadata, and a column for where is this stuff located. This chapter column is going to be really helpful because at the end of this exercise, you will have all of your proof of concept content already grouped, right? You'll be able to sort by chapter 1 hardware, for example, and you'll be able to see all of the articles that are related to that particular chapter. For this third step, keywords, metadata, and content group location, you're only doing this for files in the proof of concept. As a reminder, the proof of concept is just content from chapter 1 of each PDF. So the hardware, chapter 1 of the hardware, chapter 1 of the software, and then the appendices from them as well. And I'm pulling up right now to make sure I tell you which appendices so that we're not confused. So it will be chapter 1 from each, and then let's see, where are you? Okay, so you will go Appendix A from the software guide, and then Appendix B from the hardware guide. Okay, so you'll do chapters 1 from each, and then Appendix A from the software guide, Appendix B from the hardware guide. Okay, so this is going to be quite a bit of work to figure out which of these articles actually are related to Appendix A and Appendix B, and from each chapter. Let me give you a little tip on how to do that. So the main way I would identify which of these actual topics in column A are part of the proof of concept content is I would open up the actual PDF itself, and each of those table of contents items are all representing a header 1. And because those are all representing a header 1, we know that those all are going to be split up into different topics. So for example, there is a software components section in the table of contents under chapter 1 for the hardware manual. And so we know that that is part of chapter 1. So again, you're welcome to work through all of the topics, but at this stage we want to start to narrow and group which ones are actually related to chapter 1, which ones are related to the appendix, Appendix A for the software, Appendix B for the hardware. Okay, so it's a lot of sort of organizing content at this stage, and that's what this information architecture exercise is all about. For keywords, we want keywords we want to be able to tag content with keywords. And just as a quick tutorial, and you should know how to do this, but as a quick tutorial, you can just highlight a word, right-click it, and add a keyword. And then we can also add metadata to the title. We can add metadata to, that's probably the best place to put it, but we want to add metadata. We want to add the terms here in this column. So our keywords, CLI, ZSM, PMM, ZVisor, these are all references to other pieces of technology in the hardware installation guide. And then these metadata, I chose common words that may appear in other places as well, including Ethernet and chassis. You don't actually have to go in and mark any of this stuff up with keywords and metadata. At this stage, all I'm asking you to do is to turn in the spreadsheet and include the location and names of your template files in your Madcap Flare repository. So those are the two things you will turn in for the group content model project or assignment. The other thing I will say, I will strongly encourage you to essentially, once you gain access to the Flare, the Zen 4 content files, I would ask you to create a whole new set of folders, and I would name it your team team 1, team 2, whatever. That should be the name of the folder. And then I would create a subfolder called templates and just throw your templates in there. That will make it super easy for you to find those templates, but then it'll also make it super easy for me to find and grade those as well. Okay. Discussion post is the same as always. Take a look at the prompt. You'll be responding to the content for the week. But I know that there's a lot of technical moving parts at this stage. And so if you've got questions, please don't hesitate to query your fellow students. Don't hesitate to obviously email me or tag me in a discussion post, and we can make sure we're all on the same page. So that's module 3. It's a lot, but it's going to get us like almost to the finish line with the single source project. So a lot of work to be done this week, but a lot of good work that's going to help us complete our single source project. So as always, email.